All right, so are you ready to dive into this Hezbollah stuff?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Because it's pretty wild what's going on right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we're going to take a deep dive into all this Hezbollah news.
Okay.
We're talking about, like, some serious potential power shifts,
Yeah.
international intrigue.
Right.
Like, we got to unpack this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're starting with a really, really big report. This is the one that kind of, like, sent shock waves through the region. The alleged death of the Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah, in an Israeli airstrike.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a game changer if this is true. This is huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's been leading this movement for decades. He's, like, both revered and feared, and now suddenly he's gone.
Right, and I mean, the implications here are enormous.
Hmm.
For Hezbollah, obviously, but for the region as a whole, even for, like, global power dynamics.
Yeah, it's like someone just walked in and, like, shook the whole chessboard.
Exactly.
So what do we know so far? Well, sources are saying that this alleged airstrike targeted a deep underground bunker, like we're talking 40 meters deep,
Wow.
in a Hezbollah stronghold in Beirut. And get this, there are even reports that they found Nasrallah's body intact, which makes you think he might have died just from the force of the blast alone.
Oh, wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about how far Israel might have been willing to go to take out a figure like Nasrallah.
Right, and the reactions to this have been all over the place. You've got Ayatollah Khamenei calling for an all-out confrontation with Israel, basically saying this is an act of war. And then on the other side, you've got Biden, right, urging restraint, but at the same time, he called it a measure of justice.
Interesting.
So you've got these two very different takes.
Yeah.
And then you've got the House GOP leadership. They seem to be, like, straight up celebrating this as a victory.
Wow. It's wild to see how this is playing out. It just shows you how many different alliances and rivalries are all tangled up here.
Yeah.
This is not a simple situation. There's a lot of history here. Political agendas, strategic maneuvering.
Speaking of strategic maneuvering, can we just talk about Netanyahu for a sec?
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy who knows how to use a situation to his advantage. I mean, right after this happened, he comes out and says, no place in Iran is beyond Israel's reach.
Yeah, that's a very deliberate statement. He's sending a message to everyone, to Iran, to the international community. It's a reminder of Israel's military power. Yeah. And a warning about their willingness to use it.
Right. And then he takes it even further. He calls Nasrallah's death a historic turning point. So do you think he's maybe exaggerating a little? Or could this actually change the balance of power in the Middle East?
I don't think there's any doubt that this is significant, but game changer might be a bit strong. We have to remember that Hezbollah is more than just Nasrallah. It's a complex organization. They've been around for a while. They're deeply rooted in Lebanon. They've dealt with leadership losses before.
Okay, so you're saying they might be able to bounce back from this?
It's definitely possible.
Okay, but Netanyahu's also making some power moves at home. He just brought Gideon Sa'ar into his government. Yeah, and not just in some minor role. Sa'ar's on the security cabinet now.
Wow, that's a big deal.
Right.
Especially right now. It makes you wonder what Netanyahu's thinking.
So he brings in his former rival,
Right.
gives him a really important position, and he does it during this incredibly tense time.
Yeah, it's a smart move. It makes him look strong and unified, like he's got everything under control.
Right, like he's thinking ahead.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this major event, fiery rhetoric, political maneuvering on multiple fronts, and just when you think it couldn't get more intense, it does.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Things escalate. And not necessarily where you might expect.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So we see Israel launching airstrikes, but not in Lebanon.
Interesting. Where then?
They're hitting targets in Yemen.
Yemen.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unexpected.
Yeah, Yemen. We're talking strikes over 1,800 kilometers away from Israel.
1,800 kilometers. That's a serious distance.
Right. That's like flying from New York to Oklahoma. It really puts the scale of what we're talking about into perspective.
Absolutely. But why Yemen? What's the connection there?
Well, it all leads back to the Houthis, the group that controls a big chunk of Yemen.
Right, the Houthis.
They've been launching missiles at Israel, apparently in support of the Palestinians in Gaza. So the Houthis are firing missiles from Yemen all the way into Israel. Like, this is a big deal, right?
Yeah, this is not some random act of aggression. To really understand this, you need to look at the bigger picture. The Houthis aren't just fighting in Yemen. They have a strong alliance with Iran. They're a key part of Iran's network of allies in the region.
Okay, so they're like Iran's proxy.
Exactly. So when they target Israel, it's not just about Gaza, it's a power play in this much larger game. Iran's showing its reach. showing they can influence things without directly going after Israel.
And Israel's response to this?
They hit back hard.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The airstrikes targeted important infrastructure in Yemen. We're talking power plants, oil reservoirs, even the port of Hodeidah.
Trying to cripple them, basically.
Yeah, these weren't just warning shots. They wanted to disrupt the Houthis' ability to function.
And as if that wasn't enough drama, there's this incident with Netanyahu's plane, like right out of a movie.
What happened?
As his plane is landing back in Israel, the Houthis fire a missile at Ben Gurion Airport.
Oh, wow, really? That's bold.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to launch attacks from a distance, but to directly target Israel's main airport, that's a whole other level.
Yeah, it shows they're not afraid of escalating things.
It also tells us something else. Their missile technology is getting better. They wouldn't attempt a strike like that unless they were confident.
That's a scary thought. Good thing Israel has the Iron Dome to intercept.
Yeah, that system definitely prevented a potential disaster.
Do we know what the Houthis were hoping to achieve with this? Like, what's their end game here?
It's hard to say for sure. Some people believe the Houthis are trying to overextend Israel, force them to fight on multiple fronts, with Iran's support, of course.
Makes sense.
Others think it's more about gaining leverage in future negotiations, showing they're a force to be reckoned with.
So basically keep poking the bear until it gives you what you want.
In a nutshell.
So we've got Israel and the Houthis trading blows, Iran pulling strings in the background.
Right, and the situation is incredibly tense.
Where does the U.S. fit into all this? They can't just sit on the sidelines, can they?
It's a tough spot for them. They're trying to walk a tightrope here. Biden's calling for everyone to chill out, avoid an all-out war. He's talking about diplomacy, trying to set up meetings with Netanyahu to de-escalate.
Right, but they're also increasing their military presence in the region.
Yeah, they are.
So which is it? Diplomacy or flexing their muscles?
It's a bit of both. They're trying to project strength and a willingness to intervene if necessary, but hopefully not provoke anything.
Speak softly but carry a big stick. Classic. But does it work?
Tough to say. That's the million-dollar question, right? It's a delicate balance. Too much saber rattling could just make things worse.
It really is a delicate situation.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And then just when you think things can't get any weirder?
Oh, tell me it gets weirder.
Right. What else happened? We get this report about a helicopter crash in Iran.
Okay.
And this isn't just like a regular helicopter crash.
Right.
Some pretty important people were reportedly on board.
Like, who are we talking about?
Well, according to reports, Mohammed Abdul Salam, he's the Houthi coordinator in Iran.
Right.
He was killed in the crash.
Oh, wow.
And a senior commander in the IRGC, that's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Basically, Iran's elite military force.
You know what the IRGC is?
Right, of course. But that's not all. Mohammed Abdusalam was reportedly on that helicopter, too.
Mohammed Abdusalam, the Houthis' propaganda chief.
Yeah, him.
Wow. Okay, so you've got high-ranking members from both the Houthis and the IRGC on this helicopter, and it crashes in Iran at a time when tensions with Israel are already through the roof. This is suspicious, even for this story.
Right. I mean, what are we supposed to make of this?
I don't think anyone has the answer to that yet. On the surface, it looks like a horrible accident.
Yeah.
Just awful timing on top of everything else that's going on.
Right, but
But the timing and who was on that helicopter, it's definitely raising some eyebrows.
So what are people saying? What are the theories?
Well, there are whispers about this being more than an accident. Could someone have deliberately taken that helicopter down? Maybe someone who wants to see this conflict escalate even further.
It sounds like a spy thriller.
It does, doesn't it? Some people are also looking at how this crash will affect things on the ground. Will this disrupt the Houthis' ability to operate, to communicate with their Iranian backers?
So many questions, and we're not really sure about the answers yet.
Exactly, and that's what makes this whole situation so complex and unpredictable.
Definitely. So much to unpack today. We started with the news about Nasrallah, then dove into the Israel-Houthi conflict, touched on Netanyahu's political maneuvering, and tried to make sense of the U.S.'s role. And just when we thought it couldn't get wilder, we get a mysterious helicopter crash in Iran.
It's a reminder that the Middle East is like a constantly shifting puzzle, and it's almost impossible to predict what will happen next.
You said it. We may not have all the answers, but hopefully we've given you a clearer picture of what's going on.
Yeah, hopefully everyone listening has a better understanding of the different players, their motivations, and what's at stake.
For sure. And as always, keep those brains buzzing. We'll see you on the next deep dive.